Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We will start our webinar with the recitation of the Holy Quran, and I request Tariq Malik Sahib for tilawat.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما يبدل القول لدي وما أنا بظلام للعبيد. يوم نقول لجهنم هل امتلأت وتقول هل من مزيد. وأزلفت الجنة للمتقين غير بعيد. هذا ما توعدون لكل أواب حفيظ. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan, the accursed. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. The sentenced passed by me cannot be judged, cannot be changed, and I am not at all unjust to my servants. On the day we will say to hell, art thou filled up? And it will answer, is there more? And heaven will be brought near to the righteous, no longer remote. This is what was promised to you, to everyone who always turned to God and was watchful of his actions. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah Ahsan Jaza. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I welcome all of you to this Wasaya webinar. Jazakallah for your time and Jazakallah for your participation. This webinar is our quarterly webinar that we've been holding. We've started holding in the beginning of the last fiscal year, and we're trying to have these webinars every quarter. And the intent of this webinar is aimed to educate ourselves of our responsibilities, duties, obligations as Musi, and to really increase our knowledge about the rules, the covenant, the pledges that are associated with the Nizam-e Wasiyat, and after that knowledge, then bring that to action as well. As we just heard in the recitation of the Holy Quran that Allah Ta'ala promises Jannat, paradise, but it is promised to those who are watchful of their actions and who turn to Allah Ta'ala. So it is conditional. We have to constantly self-evaluate that, if we're watchful of our actions and pledges or not. I want to read a passage from Al-Wasiyat. Hazrat Masih Maud सलाम फरमाते हैं कि मैं दुआ करता हूँ कि खुदा इसमें बरकत दे और इसी को बहिश्ती मकबरा बना दे और ये इस जमात के पाक दिल लोगों की ख्वाबगाह हो, जिन्होंने दर हकीकत दीन को दुनिया पर मुकद्दम कर लिया और दुनिया की मोहब्बत छोड़ दी और खुदा के लिए हो गए और पाक तब्दीली अपने अंदर पैदा कर ली और रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के असहाब की तरह वफ़ादारी और सिद्क़ का नमूना दिखलाया। फिर मैं दुआ करता हूँ कि ए मेरे कादिर खुदा, इस ज़मीन को मेरी जमात में से उन पाक दिलों की कब्रें बना दे जो फ़िल वाक़या तेरे लिए हो चुके और दुनिया की अगराज़ की मलूनी उनके कारोबार में नहीं। आमीन या रब्बुल आलमीन। फिर मैं तीसरी दफ़ा दुआ करता हूँ कि ए मेरे कादिर करीम, ए खुदाए गफ़ूर और रहीम, तो सिर्फ़ उन लोगों को इस जगह कब्रों की जगह दे जो तेरे इस फ़रिस्तादा पर सच्चा ईमान रखते हैं और कोई नफाक और गर्ज़ नफसानी और बदजनी अपने अंदर नहीं रखते, और जैसा कि हक़ ईमान और अतात का है बजा लाते हैं और तेरे लिए और तेरी राह में अपने दिलों में जान फिदा कर चुके हैं, जिनसे तू राज़ी है और जिनको तू जानता है कि वह बकुली तेरी मोहब्बत में खोए गए और तेरे फ़रिस्तादा से वफ़ादारी और पूरे अदब और इंशराही ईमान के साथ मोहब्बत और जानफिशानी का ताल्लुक़ रखते हैं। आमीन या रब्बुल आलमीन। Hazrat Masih Wasallam says, in the will, I pray that God may bless it and that He may make this very piece of land the Bahishti Maqbara and make the resting place of such members of the Jamaat as are pure of heart and who have in reality given precedence to faith over the world and who have renounced the world and have submitted themselves to God and have brought about in themselves a holy change, and like the companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ have set the example of faithfulness and truthfulness. Ameen, O Lord of the world. I pray again, O Allah, powerful God of mine, make this piece of land fit for the graves of those of my Jamaat who are pure of heart and who have in reality become yours, and in their deeds there is no adulteration of worldliness. Ameen. Again, for the third time do I pray, O my mighty and benevolent God, O forgiving and merciful God, do grant them alone a place for graves here, who have true faith in this messenger of yours, and who have no trace of hypocrisy, of selfish motives, and of doubt or suspicion in their hearts, and as faith and obedience deserve to be followed and observed, they follow and observe it for your sake. And in their heart of hearts, they have already sacrificed their lives for you and in your path, and you are pleased with them. And those whom you know to be totally lost in love for you, and those who have with your messenger a relationship of love and devotion based on loyalty, total respect, and enlightened faith. Ameen, O Lord of the world. So as we can clearly see that Hazrat Masih has these expectations from all of us being Musi. And we need to constantly self-evaluate that, are we meeting these expectations or not? Have we inculcated these qualities that ought to be seen in a Musi? Have we been evolving gradually in our spirituality ever since we made this pledge and covenant with Allah Ta'ala? So these are the things that we all must reflect constantly. Um, with that, I want to now pass it on to Murabbi Musawwir Saab, who will walk us through a quote from Khalifa Masih Rabi rahimahullah ta'ala, and we'll uh, explain that, and then inshallah we'll continue the webinar from there on. So Murabbi Musawwir Saab, over to you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well,
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I want to share a passage of Hazrat Subatul Masih Rabi rahimahullah. First, I want to present this in Urdu. In Hazrat Subatul Masih Rabi rahimahullah अपने खुतबा जुमा मार्च 28 1986 में फरमाते हैं, इसलिए मैं मूसियान को नसीहत करता हूँ कि अभी वक्त है जिंदगी में खुदा ताला से अपने मामलात दुरुस्त कर लेने का। अगर इस दौर में आपने अपने मामलात दुरुस्त ना किए या बाज बातें मख्फी रखी और किसी पहलू से भी तकवा के मियार पर पूरा ना उतरे, तो ये वहमो गुमान दिल से निकाल दें कि क़यामत के दिन आप अपनी कमजोरियों और कोताहियों के बदले इस दुनिया की माली कुर्बानियां पेश करेंगे। यहाँ में जो कुछ मर्जी लिखा हुआ है यहाँ खाते में जो कुछ मर्जी लिखा हुआ हो, ये दफ्तर वसीयत का खाता है, वहां मुंतकिल नहीं होगा। वहां तो किरामन कातिबीन के खाते और हैं। वो जो खुदा के फरिश्ते खाते तैयार करते हैं, इनके लिखने का तर्ज भी और है, इनकी अकाउंटेंसी का निज़ाम भी बिल्कुल मुख्तलिफ है। उन्होंने कोई चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी तो नहीं की, यहाँ बैठकर कि वो ज़ाहिरी तौर पर एतदाद और शुमार के पीछे जाएँ। उन्होंने अल्लाह ताला से वो गुर सीखे हैं कि किसकी कुर्बानी को जिसके पीछे ख़ास रूह की कितना बढ़कर लिखना है और किसकी कुर्बानी को कितना कम दिखा के लिखना है या बिल्कुल सफ़ा हस्ती से मिलियामीट कर देना है। तो खुदा की अकाउंटेंसी के हिसाब और हैं, इनको पेश नज़र रखकर अपने मामला दुरुस्त करें, दुनिया की अकाउंटेंसी के धोखे में मुब्तला ना रहें। I will say this now, the statement of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimahullah in English. He mentions regarding the divine system of accounting. He says, "This is why I remind Musis that there is still time in your life. Correct your relationship with Allah the Almighty. If you do not set your matters right with Him now, if you conceal any shortcomings, or if you fail to uphold righteousness in any aspect, then remove from your hearts the notion that on the day of judgment you will be able to present a financial sacrifice as compensation for your weaknesses and mistakes. No matter what is recorded here, the accounts of the Wasiyat office will not be transferred there. The accounts of the honored recorders are of a different nature. The angels' records are not based on numbers and figures as in human chartered accountancy. Allah has granted them the ability to magnify a sacrifice made with pure intentions or to diminish or even erase one lacking sincerity. The divine system of accountancy is entirely different. Keep this in mind when setting your affairs right with Allah the Almighty. And do not be deceived by the accountancy of this world. So a couple notes to take away from here, that taqwa is not taxation. First thing is that we always have to keep taqwa in mind. And that is our way to attain nearness to Allah Ta'ala. That is how we, Hazrat Ibn Masih Rabi here is mentioning as well. The first thing he mentioned in his statement is taqwa. कि मैं मूसियान को नसीहत करता हूँ कि अभी भी वक्त है, और कि किसी पहलू से भी तकवा के मियाद को पूरा ना उतर सके. Taqwa is the first thing. And then therefore afterwards you move on to the rewards that you will achieve in the hereafter of the sacrifices that you made in this world. And the increase in sacrifices means increase in wealth as well. But we also must always remember that it is all based off of the intention, the niyyah. That is the main driver in all sacrifices. And at the end of the day, we also need to ask ourselves that, am I doing enough? Am I giving enough? Am I doing the right thing? And that is exactly what Hazrat Ibn Masih Rabi has stated over here, that if taqwa is kept in the mind, and you know that Allah Ta'ala is keeping records of everything, then how are you going to present yourself on that day? Because everything will be clear in the hereafter. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah Murbi Saab. This is Mubashir Ahmed, so I'll be going over the Wasiyat Chanda portion, or the Hissa Ahmad overview, and the Schedule C that we have to submit at the end of every year. So I'll go over some pointers on that. So we'll start out first with the Wasiyat rule number 69. It shall be obligatory for every Musi to submit to the Wasiyat office at the end of every year a declaration as set out in Schedule C in respect of his payments towards his samad. In case such a declaration is not received, Sadr Anjuman Ahmadiyya Pakistan, after giving necessary warning, is entitled to declare the Musi a defaulter and shall take necessary disciplinary measures, which may also lead to the cancellation of his wasiyat. Again, this is the exact wording, and it's coming from the Wasiyat rulebook, page 18, if anyone wants to take a look. So just some guidelines. A lot of us have submitted the Schedule C in the past, but in case you haven't, here's some guidelines for those that may be new to this. The Wasiyah department will send your statements for the most recent year, as well as for any prior years that you have missing Schedule C forms, as well as the links to the Schedule Cs, so that you can submit those forms. So you should, once you get the statements, you should review the statements and make sure you have no missing payments, or if anything is wrong with your address or Wasiyah number, you should take a look and reach out to the department if there are any errors. You should review it against your personal financial records, just to make sure that your total income is what you paid your chanda on. And just as a reminder, the statement only includes Hissa Ma chanda. It doesn't include things like Tariqa Jadid chanda or Waqf Jadid or Jalsa Salana. Check your total take-home income to see if you're not missing any additional sources of income. So most commonly, this happens when we get our tax refunds, that we may not have paid chanda on it. So that's something to keep in mind as you fill out your Schedule C. Um, this is one concept that we have kind of also discussed as the clearance year. So your clearance year is defined as the last continuous unbroken fiscal year in which you have submitted a Schedule C. So as an example, if you submit your Schedule C consistently up until the fiscal year 2021, and you miss 2 years after that, but then you submit for fiscal year 24 and then fiscal year 25, your clearance year is still going to be fiscal year 2020, 2021, because you've missed a couple of years in between. So that's why we tell everybody to catch up with their submissions every year. And the department emails you about that as well. So the next slide is this is a very common misconception. So we want to discuss what's the difference between a chanda budget and a Schedule C. So chanda budgets, as we all know, get submitted at the beginning of the fiscal year, while a Schedule C is submitted at the end. So a chanda budget is an estimate of the income you're going to get. And then the Schedule C is more factual, right? It's more fact-based and represents what actually happened during the year and how much income you made, and then paying the 10% or whatever chanda rate that you've declared. The chanda due in the Schedule C declaration is not your chanda budget. It's your actual calculation of how much income you made and how much chanda you're supposed to pay. So the budget submission has no direct connection to the Schedule C. And one of the thing to keep in mind is that when the Musi earns additional income throughout the year, that may end up being more than the chanda budget you submit. So when we fill out our Schedule C, it's important to note that we don't just put what our chanda budget was in the Schedule C. It's your actual take-home income, and then for 10% or whatever rate you've selected for your wasiyat. So the next slide. So this is we're going to go through some step-by-steps on how to submit the Schedule C form. So this is kind of the initial landing page. There's a QR code in case people want to follow along. That's the form for 24 fiscal year 24-25. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. So this is probably the most important part of the Schedule C. I just pasted a snippet of someone's chanda statement that we send. So you can see number one is just making sure you're in the right year, right? That's the calendar year period. Number two is the wasiyat number, which I've put here, and then the wasiyat amount is number three, and then number four is the total amount of the chanda. So this is one of the most important parts. So that number four that I've kind of highlighted is the total member wasiyat amount. So this is the amount that has to go into the payment box in the Schedule C form. So I'm going to show that in the next slide. So on this slide is kind of the basic info that we have to enter. Your wasiyat number, your wasiyat rate, and then wasiyat source, Rabba or Qadian. Most likely, most people are going to be Rabba source. Qadian, there's only about 100 or so people that have that source, so you're most likely going to have to submit to Rabba, just in case you're wondering. So the declaration, this is also key here. There's three kind of options here that you can go over. Option one is you paid exactly the chanda that was due by you. So that's the most easy scenario. Option two is if your total payment was more than the due chanda, so you have a little extra money that you've paid. And then option three is you have a shortfall. So you're supposed to pay a certain amount of chanda, but you paid a little bit less than that. So we'll just briefly go over kind of what happens in each scenario. So this is the kind of the simplest scenario, which is your chanda due equals your chanda paid. So here you could see down I pasted a image of the chanda statement here. So number three, that $300 goes into my total payment is that box here, number four. So that has to go into that box. And then from there, you can declare your chanda is either over that amount or your chanda due is either over that amount or under that amount. So this is kind of how the linkage between the statement and the Schedule C form. So just moving on. So option two, you have an arrears that you've paid. So your chanda due was 300, your total payment was 400, so you have $100 overpayment. And then here you can select if you have to pay in arrears or if you paid in excess intentionally just to increase your financial sacrifice. So in this case, we've selected arrears paid. So one additional step here is that if you've selected arrears paid, then you also have to go and resubmit the Schedule C form for that year that had the arrears. So yeah, this part is not the final part. You have to make sure that the Schedule C that had the shortfall also gets corrected. So this is just one important point to make. So option two, you have an excess created. Again, you just wanted to increase your financial sacrifice. So not much to do here. You just select, the $100 was paid in excess intentionally. So nothing else has to be done here. Option three, you have a payment due. So your due chanda was 300. However, throughout the year, you only paid 200. So you have a $100 payment that has to be made. And this is especially true for the non-earning Musis who have to pay $300 a year. So down in number four, as I've highlighted, you have either two options. You can select already paid or need more time to pay arrears. If you select already paid, you have to put the receipt number and the date. You can't really advance through this step if you haven't. And then you also have to you'll see a few steps further. You have to include the receipt of the payment that you made for that arrears. You have to include that as an attachment. So I'm just going to keep going. So this is one other page we wanted to tell Musian is that there's a way you can pay, and this is found in the Chanda portal. There's a QR code and there's a link here. But there's a way to, if you have a missing payment for a prior year, let's say 5 years ago you missed a payment, you can go to this missing payment Chanda page, and down here you can see this fiscal years that you can select a year that you had the missing payment for. You can select the chanda type and then pay that amount, and it will be as if you paid it in that year. So meaning you'll get a receipt that looks like you paid it in that year. So it's a convenient tool, and it's kind of important, and it's useful as we do your Schedule C forms. And then option three, you have a payment due here. And here you've selected that you need more time to pay arrears in that one. So then the next question it's going to ask is how long you need to pay. So here we've selected 6 months. So you can select anywhere from 6 months to up to 12 months maximum is what we recommend. So that's kind of the recommendation here. And then the incorrect statement option. So this is really unlikely. If you've paid your chanda, especially if you pay online and you've entered your member code correctly and you've entered your Jamaat info, it's very unlikely that your statement's going to be incorrect. Your usually the statement we send you captures everything. It may be the case that there's user error that the Musi has not. For example, they haven't included their member code when they paid their chanda, or they maybe selected a different Jamaat, which may cause payments to not be tracked correctly. So before you select this option, just make sure that you're absolutely sure that there is in fact incorrection in incorrect statement. So here it's kind of it's pretty easy to fill out. We've the first two boxes are what we see before. Your chanda due was 300. Your payment shared was 200. However, in number one we say my actual payment I think was 300. So that's pretty easy to fill out. Sources of income. Here is where we select kind of where we received our take-home pay. So option one is typically salary. Option six is pocket money. That's typically for non-earning Musian. Um, Option 10 is for rental income. That's for 1/16th rate. Option 12 is important. That's the student stipend. So if you're a student and you, especially if your chanda was below 300, you should specify that in number 12, and then you can mention the year and the degree level of your level here. And this is also a good checklist. I recommend everyone kind of takes a look at this list because it kind of lists out which income you may have earned throughout the year. And it's a good checklist, especially to see if you have anything missing. So it's a good kind of list to go through. Attach optional documents. So um, previously, if you mentioned that you paid a chanda that was due that you hadn't made in the year, this is where you should attach the receipt for that missing payment. And this is so the markers has proof that you've made the payment. It's not enough that you just put your receipt number and the date. It's always a good idea to include any chanda receipts for any missing payments here. Um, Step five, contact information. This is pretty easy. Just your name and address. Your Jamaat branch. That should be. Try to make sure that that's correct, so there's no issues tracking your form. And then additional notes, just to note that that only gets seen by the National Wasaya Department. If you have anything you want to send to Marcus, the best thing to do is here attach optional documents. If you want to include a letter or some explanation, best thing is to include a PDF of that here if you want to send that to Marcus. Uh, and then the last step, review and submit. Um, just make sure your receipt number is right, your payments are all right against the statement. And then once you've done that, you can sign and submit here. And then post submission. So we in the Wasaya department will verify all the information you provided in the form. If it's correct, it'll get sent to Marcus. If it's not, you'll get an email saying that there's an issue, and then you have to resubmit or fix the error. And it could be something like you incorrect Wasiyat number. Please look out for these emails and try to address them promptly. Otherwise, it's not going to get your Schedule C form. It won't get sent to Marcus. And this is a good place to involve your local Wasaya secretary and make sure that you're getting his help if you need to make a correction. So for Qadian Musyan, they require additional signatures from their local Jamaat Sadr as well as the Secretary of Finance. So you don't have to do anything. The department already emails them after you make your submission. And an auto-generated email is sent to both. I just recommend you follow up with them because sometimes they'll forget to sign or they won't see the email. So it's always a good idea to just follow up with them and make sure that they've signed it and your form can be processed quickly. So just some common mistakes. We've seen this a lot in the department, but just wanted to go over some of these. You may have seen an email about this already, but incorrect wasiyat number, it's going to be hard to process your form if your wasiyat number isn't right, because that's kind of the main tracking info for you as a Musi. If you select Qadian incorrectly, if you're not from Qadian, meaning if your wasiyat file is not from Qadian, and again, I recommend most people should just select Rabwa. In most cases, that is your Markaz office where you submitted your application. Um, Entering a total payment amount that doesn't match your Chanda statement. So again, I mentioned this earlier, but the total statement Chanda amount has to match or has to go into the total payment box in the Schedule C form. Entering a chanda due or paid that's less than 300. The exceptions is really if you're a student or if you had a partial year because you applied in that year. Including chanda that is not Hissa chanda in the Schedule C form. So initially when we apply, we have a sharti awal chanda and elan wasiyat. So those should absolutely not be included in the form. Hissa Jaidad should not be included. Tariq Jadid, Waqf Jadid, these are chanda jat that should not be included in the form. If arrears payments are made in the current year, but you kind of selected that your entire statement amount is for that year, meaning you haven't selected that the arrear payment should apply to a previous year. And then indicating your chanda statement is incorrect. And again, we mentioned this, it's likely user error or you forgot to enter in your wasiyat number incorrectly or sorry, your member code incorrectly or Jamaat. This applies to a lot of Musian, but this is for non-earning Musis who pay $300 chanda per year. So the only exception to this rule is if you're a student, you can pay less than 300 according to your means, and you have to select option 12 in the sources of income. Um, and a new non-earning Musi can pay less than $300 if their effective date occurs after the new fiscal year. So in that case, those Musian can pay a prorated amount of $300, meaning it's less than $300 based on the number of months left in the year. So the way that's calculated is it's starting from the effective date to the end of the year. So as an example, if your effective date was January 1st of 2026, then there's 3 months left in the year. As we know, the fiscal year ends on June 30, so that would be 6 months of chanda, 6 months of chanda that would apply to you. So that you take that 300 and cut it in half, so that would be 150 that you'd pay. But then all other non-earning, non-student Musian must pay a minimum of $300 per year. And then the final slide here is the Wasaya help desk when to reach out. Really, we should reach out to the Wasaya help desk for any markers related issues. If you received a clearance letter or arrears calculation, Wasaya certificates, Hisab letters, that things of that nature. But really, we would like you to work with your local Wasaya secretary as much as you can. They're kind of the first line of defense if you have any issues with your Schedule C form. So, this could be if you're missing chanda statements, if you're having trouble finding it, they can help you locate those. If you need help filling out your Schedule C form, like if you have basic questions on how to fill it out, if you received a rejection email, the Wasaya department can help you. Sorry, the local secretary can help you resubmit a corrected form. And if you want to know, this is important. If you want to know if you have any missing Schedule C forms for prior years, or if you want to check if you have arrears balance, they can also help in this regard. So I think that was it, and we'll hold questions till the end, but we're gonna quickly now pivot over to the property online form. So I'll turn it over to Bilal Saab here. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. We'll take a few minutes to go over some of the new modules we've added to the Wasiyat portal today. But I just want to emphasize and reiterate what Mubashir Sahib mentioned earlier, that Hissa Ahmad, your Schedule C is an annual form. And then, so that's not, Hissa Jaidad is specifically about properties and assets. And so we'll start off with the rule within the Wasiyat rulebook. Rule 53 states that every Musi is expected every 5 years to inform the office of the property particulars on the prescribed form. And in order to do that, we have this week launched a new digital way for you to submit in a standardized form that can be filled out online. Um, if you go to the QR code that's shown on the slide deck, it will take you to this portal, which is ahmadiyya.us/members/Wasiyat-portal. Here you'll have the option to submit the particulars and then as well as the assessments. I just want to reiterate that property particulars is not an assessment. It's just declaring what are the assets that you have. So let's go over the form quickly. So very similar to the Schedule C form, you submit your information. So we'll go through it. We'll fill it out together. So this is my Wasiyat number. My Wasiyat source is Rabba. I'm going to put my name. I'm going to put my chapter, which is I select my chapter. I fill out my information, and then I can also fill out my address, and then it lets you automatically fill out the rest of it by selecting the address. And then you can go and declare your property. So I want to add real estate property. So for example, this is my primary residence that I am paying and living in. So I'm just gonna, for myself, I'll just kind of explain what it is. It is a house. The address is this, and then the house is say around I don't know 2,000 square feet in square, and then you pick the size of the property, so it's in square feet. If you leave it blank, it's going to consider ownership as 100%, but ownership is really determined by the amount of contribution. So if you have other members that are paying towards the property or are paid towards the property, the ownership is actually calculated based on contribution, not necessarily ownership in name. So I will go ahead and add this, and then I can go ahead and add additional items as well. So I have one property that I'm declaring. I can go and declare other items such as savings account, or if I have a business, if I have jewelry, for example. Let's go over the jewelry case because that's one of the more popular ones. So I say I have gold jewelry. We could say gold bangles, for example. So there's a total of two pieces. They're worth 10 grams and they are 22 karat gold. Now I've declared two separate items, item one and item two, and I will simply go and write my name, or I can draw to sign it, and then I will go ahead and submit the property particulars. When you submit the form, you will receive an email within a few seconds. Let me bring that up right here. So you will receive an email immediately with your property confirming that we've received your property particulars to confirm that that we have received it. Similarly, your local secretary Wasaya is going to be copied on it, so they will be in the loop. The information you submitted will be in the email, as well as the property declaration form that we received is going to be attached. One new feature that we've added is for you to quickly go and update. So as this is something that is submitted every 5 years, we try to make it easy for everyone who wants to make any adjustments. And so right from the email itself, you can click on Submit an Updated Declaration, and it will repopulate the form with all my existing information so that I can, Alhamdulillah, if I was blessed with another property or if I was able to get an additional asset, I can simply go quickly add it and I can go resubmit it, and it'll make it easier to go keep this updated in the future. And then we will keep receiving updated emails every time you submit an updated form. Now, I just want to again iterate this. This is just a declaration form, and so if you are fortunate and are able to submit or pay towards your Hissa Jaidad, or you wish to pay towards your Hissa Jaidad in your lifetime, we do have assessment forms. So we have a jewelry assessment form available on the portal, as well as a real estate land assessment. And then there's a specialized form in case you are submitting for a deceased family member to sort out their wasiyat. So we'll start with jewelry assessment. Again, this is I'm going to skip the information. So very similar. You fill in your information, fill in your address, and then you're able to fill in the different types of jewelry items. And we've kept it very simple though, for the most part, gold, silver, and diamond and other. And so we expect you to pick uh, the whatever type closest matches and then describe the item, the quant number of items, and then do your best to accurately tell us the weight of the item. And then make sure you, in the form, we submit the purity. So if it's 22 karat gold versus 18 karat gold, I think that needs to be documented. As well as same for diamond, which is also the other type of carat. And so it's important to make sure we document the type of carat and the weight of the diamond with a bit of an estimated value for each of the items. And similarly, you can click add another jewelry item, so you can add several items in one form, and then sign and submit. And then you will also receive a very similar um, email that you have submitted your property assessment for the jewelry. Now, I only have a couple of minutes, but I really want to go over the real estate land assessment because that's the one that has a little bit more details to it. So again, this is a rule from Wasiyat Rulebook. The link of the book is actually linked right here. So in case you want to go read it right within the PDF. Um, but I'm gonna, for this one, let's take a second and fill it out together. So I will go and fill my information out. Okay, and then I will put my information, my father's information, and then I will go ahead and get my house assessed. And so I will put the house address in, um, and then I will roughly give the square footage of the house, and then any notes I would like to put if you want to share anything, and this is optional. And then in terms of valuation evidence, um, we have now standardized on accepting only the property tax assessment, which is the official assessed value notice that you receive from your local county, city, township, whatever tax authority you may fall under. So we've now standardized to only accepting that, and we request that you go ahead and attach that the tax assessment, put the value that of the property according to that tax assessment, and then include that for every single value property that you are filling in. So I'm gonna go say, suppose the house is worth $500,000. I'm gonna attach um, I'll attach uh, okay. I'm attaching two large of files, but you attach the file, and then the actual member-owned value is going to appear in there. I'm sorry, apologize for this. There we go. This is the file. Okay, so the property is attached. And then we automatically calculate the value of the property based on the numbers you've reported and ownership numbers. So we have 100% ownership. And if the property is worth 500,000, we assume that the member owned value is 500,000. And so we can automatically calculate that for you. So you sign, submit, and then you will receive. And then that is a good segue for you to kind of come up with a plan with the Wasaya department to pay off, if you wish to pay the Hissa Jaidad over the next few years, come up with a monthly payment plan so you can help clear out any Hissa Jaidad payment that you wish to do within your lifetime. Um, I think that's about it. I think I'm already a minute over, so I think the rest we can kind of cover over questions. I'll pass it back to you. Answer the
Jazakallah, Asmiza. We do have some questions. We're answering those questions in the Q&A, so please feel free to keep writing, or if you want to ask the question live, you can do that now. There's one question that we have not answered, so Moshe Saab or Bilal bhai, if you can take that one. This is more on the quality control and the way we have implemented the verification process on these submissions of the Schedule Cs. So the question is that how are payments verified and matched to the correct Wasiyat account? Uh, what quality control measures are used to prevent data entry errors? If a member submits corrections or supporting documentation, how is the correction tracked and confirmed as a result? What safeguards exist to prevent members from receiving repeated notices for issues that were already corrected? Has the move toward digital records improved the accuracy and timeliness of statements and Scheduling C processing?
Gee, National Secretary, I'll take that. But yeah, we kind of try to implement at least on our end, looking at your statement. I mean, we really rely on the statement that you get, and that's kind of our source document as well, when we go and verify if your Schedule C form is correct. Um, in terms of kind of your personal financial records, that's kind of between, that's kind of the taqwa principle. You kind of have to take a look at your financial records and make sure that you've paid the chanda according to the rate. Um, but other than that, we're using the same source document that, the Musian are getting to do the verifications. And we're looking at, kind of all the information that you've entered, your name, your address, the chanda amounts, um, to make sure that, whatever we've received and what you've entered, we're correcting, we're looking into that and making sure that's accurate. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of that's kind of the process we have on our end when we verify the Schedule C forms.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge that this digital process is evolving. We have there was a drastic need for this because the amount of submissions, Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, Ta'ala, we have 5,000 Musian in USA now, and so receiving the Schedule C forms for not only the current fiscal year but the prior years that a lot of Musian had missing. There's just a lot of submissions, and so we've automated the process. There are mistakes sometimes. When the form is rejected, those mistakes are pointed out, but sometimes they're not very clear. So there's a little back and forth. The other thing is that in the meantime, Markaz may send a letter that these years this particular submission has not been received because the way the process happens is that we verify the submission. We create a batch of all the submissions that are verified. We send them back to Markaz, and then they review it. And in this whole process, there may be a couple of months or more that'll pass. And in the meantime, Markaz may send a new letter stating that they still have this year missing. So there is that. element that we felt that was a disconnect between the two processes, and some Musian, although they submitted the Schedule C in in our portal, still got a letter that your form is missing, which was confusing. So we have now tried to validate before we actually email the letter from Markaz. We validate in our portal that the submission has already been made, and if it has been made, then we ensure that we do not forward the letter to avoid confusion. So we have been evolving the system and putting the checks and balances in place so that we can streamline this and make it as smooth and as easy for all the Musian as possible. So I appreciate the patience, and please continue to provide feedback so we can improve this process overall. Okay, is there any other question that we have not answered? Just one more question. If you've already paid Hissa Jaidad on the jewelry, then do you still need to submit the property assessment form every 5 years? No, so the property assessment form is only for the new property that you want to pay Hissa Jadat for. If you've already cleared one and you've already received, so what happens is that when you submit the property assessment form, we send it back to Markaz, and after Markaz approves it, and you've and they've also verified that the payment has also been made against that assessment, the approved assessment, then they issue you a certificate of Jaidad, which clearly states the actual property that the payment was made against. So if it was for jewelry, it will mention that the weight of the jewelry and how much payment was made against that, and they will issue you the certificate of Jaidad. If that has already been received, then there's no need to declare or submit the property assessment form again. But if you do acquire additional assets or properties in future, then those are required to be declared. So the next question is, what do you do if you own property without any official property tax assessment? Um, every property has county assessed tax assessment. Property tax is standardized across USA, so it's just a matter of looking it up. And typically now you can go online, you can search for it, and you should be able to uh, pull your records for your particular property online. And if you need help with that, let us know, email at us, reach out to us, and we can also look into that and help you. Or your local secretary of Wasaya can also help you on that. One more question. Do we now need to wait for the Schedule C email or can submit right after the fiscal year ends? So Jazakallah for this question. This is a very important question because as we are coming to the end of this fiscal year in June, and right after in July we'll start the new fiscal year. So we have not opened up the option to submit the Schedule C for fiscal year 25-26. And the reason we have not done it because after the year ends, it takes about a couple of weeks for us to receive all the statements, finalized statements from finance department, because they have to enter the receipts. A lot of members pay toward the end of the fiscal year or, toward the end of June. So those receipts have to be all entered into the system, finance system, and then the final year-end statement is generated. It could take a couple of weeks for that or more. But once we have a go-ahead from the finance department, these statements are finalized, then we'll pull them. We'll make them available to all the Musian so that you can then reference those statements when you're declaring your due chanda for that particular fiscal year. So that's why we have to wait for that. So inshallah ta'ala, once we have that, we will send out an email to all of you with the statements in the email. And at that time, you'll be able to go to the portal and declare your Schedule C for that particular fiscal year. Okay. The next question is, tax assessed value is different than fair market value of the property. Please confirm we pay his sajadat on which value. So Jazakallah for this question. And I do take uh, we understand that there has been in the past confusion around what is the correct source. You can actually get the market value from Zillow and Redfin and these sources as well that exist online. There's, agent assessments as well. There's appraisal. There's this county tax assessment. But this matter was discussed with respect to Amir Saib, And the guidance is that across the USA, we want to make the process simplified and standardized. And so, with respect to the Mir Sahib's instructions, we have now uh, adopted this uniform, standardized source, which is the tax assessment document or the tax assessed value for your property, and that is the market value of the property. So, in future, there shouldn't be any confusion on what source to use. That is the source, and all of the Musian should use that source to submit the assessments, and inshallah will then send that to Markaz for approval.
We
It's
we
Ji.
Sorry, Dr. Sir, with your permission. I think the one thing I forgot to mention is it's also the purposes because I think we want to not deal with market fluctuations as well. And taxes, property values are a lot more stable.
Exactly. Yeah, that's because we're declaring it, and then we have either 2 years or up to 5 years if it is your primary residence to pay it off. So tax assessed values are much more stable. They're still going and up and down based on the market, but they're not as drastic as the fluctuation that we see in the other values. So that's why this has been adopted as a standard going forward. Okay, is there a way to request an assessment in the way of if I were to die today, this is what is due? This question is not very clear, but the guidance is according to the Wasiyat rules that so there are two scenarios how you can um, pay Hissa Jaidad on your property, specifically the real estate home, right? There is scenario one, which is to pay it off in your lifetime. In that scenario, the rule says that you will be getting the assessment done on the current value, market value, which is what we discussed just now, that will be the tax assessed value of your house. And even if you have outstanding mortgage on it, you will not be remo subtracting that from the value because you're paying it in your lifetime and you have to take the responsibility of the loan yourself. And because the flexibility is being provided to pay it off and then not worry about the appreciation of the property in future, that's scenario number one. But if you opt to pay off the entire mortgage on the property, pay it off, and then at the time of passing away, if that property, the Hissa Jadad has not been paid on that property, then at that time, if there was any outstanding mortgage loan on that property, it will be deducted or subtracted from the market value, and the net equity in the property is what the Hissa Jadad will be due on at the time of the passing if the property Jadad Hissa Jadad was not paid on that property. So those are two different scenarios that we've talked about these in the past, but these are worth reminding again and again because it's uh there's still some confusion on that. So those are the two scenarios that we keep in mind. And as you just saw, we have now made it easy for all of the Musian to actually assess the property in the lifetime. That process is hopefully easier now for all of the Musian, and inshallah ta'ala, once the approval comes back, then you have a time frame to pay that off in your lifetime, and then not worry about that obligation and not leave it to the family to take care of that after one passes away. So, but again, it's a matter of choice because at the end of the day, this is um, a choice. Hazrat Masih Maud Salam in Risala al-Wasiyat had talked about tarka, after the passing away of a Musi, Jaidad is due. So that was the original guidance. But in the time of Khalifa Rabi Rahmatullah, this scenario was presented that if someone wanted to, take care of the Jaidad in the lifetime, what should they do? And this was the guidance, and this was the flexibility that was added after the guidance from Khalifa, that this is how we can do that. So keep those two options in mind. That should read own property in a foreign country without any official property tax assessment. Yeah, and so in a foreign country, if you have a property that property needs to be declared with the Wasaya department of that country. The discussion we're having today is the properties that you own in USA. If you own a property in Pakistan, for example, then the tashkhis for that property needs to be done in Pakistan. And so the process of submitting that assessment is a separate process. And it should not be done through this portal that we have just demoed you. If I sell my personal property and buy another one, do I have to pay wasiyat on both properties? What if I owe mortgage on the personal property? What is the rule on properties that are used for business as rental properties? So question number one, if I sell my personal property and buy another one, do I have to pay wasiyat on both properties? No. So if you have paid wasiyat on one property, let's say the property was worth $500,000, you already paid $50,000 if your wasiyat rate was 1/10. So you have already received a certificate of Jaidad on that property. Now, if you sell that property for $500,000 and you purchase a new property which is either the same amount or lesser in price than the first compared to the first property, then there is no additional Hissa Jaidad due because you basically swapped one property with the other property. If the next property is higher in value, that the next property, for example, is $700,000, then you will only be paying Hissa Jaidad on the additional incremental value, which is in this particular example, $200,000. So an additional $20,000 would be the Hissa Jaidad on that. So it's only on the incremental value. If you have already cleared first property and you're selling it and purchasing the second property, the payment on the first property carries over to the second property. And the second question is that what if I owe mortgage on the personal property? So as I explained earlier, mortgage becomes uh, mortgage is not a variable in if you are uh, trying to pay his sajadat in your lifetime on a property. Mortgage is not even part of the equation. That mortgage is a loan that you have to assume yourself, and the his sajadat will be due on the market value of the entire property. Again, like I said, if the payment is made at the time of passing away, then mortgage does become a factor, and the his sajadat is only paid on the equity. The third part of the question is that what is the rule on properties that are used for business as rental properties? On the rental properties, you pay whatever income you generate from those properties, you pay Hissa Ahmad on it. And depending upon the nature of the business, those rental properties, if they're part of your business, then um, the business itself has is part of your Jaidad. So the total assets or the total net worth of your business is considered Jaidad, and that has to be at some point in life assessed, and his Jaidad is due on that. We will, inshallah ta'ala, have a full webinar on the Hissa Jadad aspects of business because there are some nuances and scenarios that we want to kind of cover in detail. So we don't have enough time today, but inshallah we'll have a dedicated session on that. So we'll talk more about it. And we are also preparing the frequently asked questions in which inshallah ta'ala will address these business questions related to businesses as well. We're 3 minutes over here, so I want to be mindful of the time as well. Rabi Sab, can you please make sure that all these questions are copied over and we have them available because I want to make sure that we do address these questions through a FAQ document that we're preparing, and we want to make them available to all the Musians. So can you please make sure that this is all captured? Or Zishan Sab, if you can help with that.
जी जी we will work on it.
Okay. Um, Jazakallah. And again, this is not the only opportunity for you to ask questions or seek clarification. Please reach out to us at the help desk email that was shared earlier. It's wasiyat.helpdesk@ahmadiyya.us. And inshallah, all these questions we'll try to answer. Like I said, we're also working on an FAQ that will be shared as well. And we're going to have these webinars quarterly. So we'll make sure that we in the future webinars also focus on the areas that are more relevant to all of you. And I appreciate your feedback. Jazakallah. Again, just to sum up, today the idea was to highlight two things. One is the obligation as a Musi to not only pay chanda, but also at the end of the year, also submit Schedule C to um, declare the due chanda that was due for that year and keep your file current, right? This is a duty of a Musi, is part of the obligation. And the second thing is the Hissa Jaidad part, which is to keep the record updated with Markaz in terms of any new assets that you have made, any new property that you have made, at the minimum every 5 years. But if you have, any more properties to declare, by all means, you can declare that anytime to the portal now. It's very straightforward and seamless. And inshallah, we'll receive it on the back end, we'll send it to Markaz. So you can declare those. And then the step two of that is that you can uh, get the assessment started as well, so that you can pay that off in your lifetime, if that is the preference. So Zishan sir, can you confirm that we have captured all the questions?
जी सेक्टर साहब, they're captured.
Jazakallah. I know we could not go through all of the questions, but inshallah ta'ala we'll answer those, and reach out to us if you have any other questions. Um, with that, please join me in dua, and then we'll wrap this webinar up. Jazakallah. Please join me in dua. Ameen. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.